My name is Luis Guerrero. I am originally from Sacramento, California, born and raised, South Sacramento to be specific. My mom was born here. She's a Sacramento native as well, but her side of the family comes from a little city in Zacatecas called Aguascalientes. Um, and on my dad's side, I actually have an interesting story where my blood on my dad's side and my DNA comes from Michoacan. That's where my biological father is from. Never met him, but the man who I call my father and who raised me, his side of the family comes from a little town called Lerdo in Durango. One of the biggest challenges was falls under the umbrella of being working class. Our parents often working long hours, especially my father in construction. Other hurdles really just came about just being poor, and just trying to navigate like social pressures in school, with like not having the best clothes, not having the best attire, not having name brand stuff, thrift shopping and shopping at like a Kmart or Walmart. Those things were kind of frowned upon. But it's just one of those things that you internalize, and you just kind of learn how to live with it, for most of your childhood. The environment that I grew up in, we were always looking for things to do because we were often pretty bored. I didn't play in any basketball leagues, or I didn't play in any like soccer leagues, and so for me it was just like, what can I do outside of home? And so a lot of mischief, a lot of just hanging out, playing basketball. Sometimes we got into trouble. Most of the time we didn't. It just all depends on if you got caught or not, right? And so, but I think as I transitioned into high school, my routines changed a little differently. I changed scenery. My mom placed me at McClatchy High School. She thought that would have been the best choice for my education, which I think she made a really good choice. But that's where I got involved, and I became a 4-year athlete in basketball and football. I got a job. I was working. I was like a sound technician for the school. So my routines definitely became different once I got into high school. I am a first-generation college student. I would say that I'm the first one within my family and extended family to attend a 4-year university. So being a first-generation student and realizing that at the age of 18 when you get accepted into a college, I had no idea what that meant. I honestly didn't know how much weight that held in my family. I know it was something to be proud of because you're like the first, right? So definitely something that I was proud of, but I didn't know how much that meant until I started to get more politicized in college. It's just learning about how the world works, statistics, data around students who look like me and from backgrounds where we come from. The data wasn't, it didn't look pretty. And so I started to understand that like where I was and being a first generation college student was actually extremely significant. And I think at that point I was probably like 19, 20 years old, and I started to take school and education a lot more serious. It put me on a different path for sure. Just obstacles I faced in college was the lack of support. I didn't enter through an EOP program. I didn't enter through any assistant program. I was accepted and admitted into the university under the requirements of the GPA and the SATs and whatnot. But I wasn't college material. I would say I wasn't college ready. Definitely a culture shock. I wasn't I wasn't academic. I wasn't like dedicated to my studies. Like I said, I just didn't know what being in college as a first generation student really meant, and just being in college in general was very challenging and different. So I really didn't have anyone to go to as well. Being a first generation college student, cousins, friends, parents, nobody. Like, I really had very limited resources to, like, who else was in my position. I had a couple teachers, a couple mentors, but you kind of lose contact with them after you transition out of high school. Um, and so it was really interesting how to see, like, you were on your own and you got to make these adult moves and choices, and you kind of left stranded, but it really puts you in a position to be brave and courageous enough to reach out for help, in which I never lacked that, but I did lack that motivation, because I didn't know what college meant and what an education would mean for me. The other obstacle was money. Yeah, man. When I first attended Sacramento State University, tuition was around $1,500 a semester. This was back in 2009, and I was on the installment plan. Initially I didn't have any financial aid, so an installment plan for 3 or 4 months, you're paying about $500 a month. That's something pretty affordable, especially when you're living at home. You work part time, collect $500, and you make that installment. But being on academic probation, you get declined your financial aid. You go through that process for 2 years. Tuition starts going up. There's furloughs. There's layoffs. There's all these systems that are in place that can just kind of make it a little bit more challenging. And so you get to that point where you're just like, all right, tuition is $3,000, double what it was just 2 years ago, and you're limited on financial aid because you don't have access, because you didn't have the proper GPA, and now you're just like, oh crap, like, what do I do? Do I give up? Do I quit? Do I get an unsubsidized loan as opposed to a subsidized loan? So it's like, do I take that risk? And to be frank with you, I did. I believed in education, that I took a couple unsubsidized loans where interest starts immediately, because it was either that or drop out of college. And I didn't want to drop out of college. I would say I had a lot of family support. My parents always kind of gave me that freedom, but also trusted that I make the right choices. So I felt like that was their support. I like their moral support. Like, you want to go to school? All right, mijo, go ahead. Like, do what you got to do. And I would challenge them because I needed money, and their support was, we can't help you anymore, but we give you food, we do your laundry, we put a roof over your head. Like, we're saving you a lot of money just with that. So, I didn't realize that at the moment, but it was actually pretty significant. But I got my degree in electrical engineering from Sacramento State. That took me 8 years, and throughout those 8 years, I had touched upon that I was, politicized. I was introduced to data. I had found purpose in my education, and talking about community, I wanted to go back and give back. I felt that as an engineer, I didn't have that power, or that I feel like I wasn't gonna position myself to advance people that come from where I come from. The narrative was, become an engineer, go make real good money and work for some firms in the private sector, in the public sector, and then give back on your own time, and everything's seemed real nice, real comfortable, and to a point, I held an internship or two. I did a lot of volunteer work, and then at the same time I was volunteering at the high schools. I actually fell more in love with working with young people and doing community work than I did with actually working in the engineering field. And though I feel like I was pretty decent at it, and I feel like I would have made a great professional engineer, I just felt like there wasn't no purpose behind that, or it just didn't position me to build that legacy that we talked about, being able to produce more flowers and rose gardens in the neighborhoods that where we come from. So I figured, how can I contribute to the engineering field through education? And what can I do to work with young people all day? I'm like, teacher work with students 5 days a week, 6 hours a day, at least. And I was like, what? I think that would be my contribution to the engineering field, is to produce more engineers, more STEM students, just STEM-minded students, and produce more of those that come from our backgrounds. like the Tupac quote and poem of the rose that grew from concrete. So I want to leave a legacy that I came from and through the concrete, and then ultimately returned back and did what I can to help build stronger communities, especially communities where I come from. And for me, that legacy, I feel could be best actualized through teaching and through working with young students, and young adults, through the lens of math. Working with students from those neighborhoods, I feel like it would be a perfect opportunity to tap in and to teach students coming from the concrete to return to the concrete, and build solid foundations and solid sense of community, and that we need one another to continue to progress as a whole, right? As a nation, as the United States, and as a group of Latinx and Mexican people. I want to be able to leave a legacy of being able to give back and return to where you come from, because they're not bad places. We're not bad people. We just happen to live in certain areas that push us to make wrong decisions, and do things out of peer pressure, out of survival, right? And so it's not that we're bad people. So I want to leave a legacy of just being able to give back and to continue to grow and build community.
This album is dedicated to all the teachers that told me I never amount to nothing.
DJ LG.
To all the people that lived above the buildings that I was hustling from, that called the police on me when I was just trying to make some money to feed my daughter. To all my peoples in the struggle. It was all a dream. It was all a dream. Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. When I was dead broke, man, I couldn't picture this. Born sinner. And if you don't know, now you know. Stereotypes of a black male misunderstood. Born sinner. And if you don't know, now you know. Stereotypes of a black male misunderstood. And it's still all good, cause I went from negative to positive. And it's still all good, cause I went from negative to positive. And it's still all good, cause I went from negative to positive. And it's still all good, cause I went from negative to positive. Positive, positive, positive.